Good morning, readers. Today in our reading block, we are going to use the materials of your reading notebook, your green resource folder inside of your anchor binder, glue stick, and a pencil. Remember, your green folder is not to be taken out of your anchor binder, but just make sure your anchor binder is open to your green folder. Today, go ahead and open up your green folder. You're going to go ahead and take out Real versus Fake Reading lesson. And on the very, very back, you're going to take out the folded piece of construction paper. Those are your two items to take out. The rest, double check, are all nice and neat, still organized, and you have your paper clip to keep them together. Then place that aside, and we're going to go into our notebook. Go ahead and open up today to our table of contents so we can get our first mini lesson for today written inside. So last time we were working on how to choose books and building stamina. So we're going to just double check the page numbers because we always want to make sure that we are keeping ourselves organized. So we had it on page 13 and 14. Today, when you flip the page, we're going to be working on pages 15 and 16. So when we go back to the table of contents, go ahead and write a 15 first, and then the 16 is going to go underneath it. The first part of our lesson, we're going to talk about what does it mean to be a wow reader, and that is going to be telling the difference between real reading and fake reading. And we're going to put that on our date of 8/26-20. The second part of our lesson today is going to be working on our timeline as a reader. This is going to be an assignment that you start today in class that you can finish up tonight as part of your homework, and then it will not be due by submitting a picture of your timeline until Friday. And that can be at the end of the school day. So we're working on number 15, real versus fake reading, and number 16, the timeline as a reader. So we're going to go ahead and flip back to our pages that we're going to use today. We're going to first take our teach page, flip it over, use our glue stick, make that frame around the border, and then the X through the inside, turn it over, and go ahead and smooth it out. The second thing we're going to use is our construction paper. So we're going to actually turn our notebook so it's to the side just to get this glued in correctly. When you open it up, you're going to see that we're going to be putting our timeline on a long, skinny piece of construction paper, but we want to make sure it fits in our notebook neatly. So if you open it up, where the left side is going to be on the bottom of page 16, and we will open it up towards the top, that means we're only going to glue the left side. So your page is folded, so only the left side you're going to turn over, and you're going to put a lot of glue stick on this side to make sure that it's going to stay nice and tight on that page. Then turn it back over, glue it down, smooth it out, and for right now you can fold it back closed so it's not in your way until it's time for us to use it. Remember, you can pause the video at any time to make sure that you are getting the work done and organized the way you should. So we're going to look at the left page, our first teach page for today's lesson. And this is where we're going to talk about what does it mean to be a wow reader. And that means to have real reading going on versus what we call fake reading. So at the top, I'm going to put the word wow in all capital letters, nice and neat as much as I can. This will remind me, and I'm putting quotation marks around, that this is going to help me determine what does a wow reader look like. So when we look at this, we're going to say, this is when you are reading, you want to make sure that you are really reading and not just fake reading. You will only become a better reader when you practice. And you should know by now, Mrs. Ling loves for us to box those important words. So practice real reading. So oftentimes we see kiddos in our classrooms where they're acting as if they're reading. They have a book open and they're sitting in their reading spot around the room, but we see some some characteristics that they're showing us. So we're going to talk about those in a minute when it comes to fake reading. So let's first identify what it means to be a real reader. So a real reader is someone who is reading their assigned books or leveled book. So we're going to say reads assigned or leveled book. If it's our dessert reading time, that means that it's a book that you can choose based on interest or some other purpose. But during our independent reading, it's oftentimes sticking to following the leveled reading that you were asked to do, or there might be some other material, an article, mentor text that you are to read for the purpose of actually learning a strategy or skill. We're going to move down to the next point of what does a real reader look like, and they stay in their spot. So even at home, you should find yourself a comfortable spot to sit in to do that reading. It's away from distraction. It's not going to be where people are asking you questions. You are able to focus for a sustained amount of time, and we call that uninterrupted time, so you can do your best work. The next part of real reading is when you can ask questions to oneself. So as a reader, we need to always be questioning what's happening in the text. So asks questions to oneself. It might be needing to clarify a vocabulary word. It might be wanting to look up more specific information for background knowledge so we can understand what's in our text. We might need to reread something. So it's being able to make sure we're interacting with the information that we're reading at that time. You might also get lost in a book. Mrs. Lang loves to get lost in books. That is something I do as part of my free time. Is I love to read. I feel like it's just my time to relax and kind of recharge and do something different than my normal everyday life. The next one could be you don't distract others or yourself. So we'll put don't distract others or yourself. And the last part, we make connections. We try to think about how does this book or material that I'm reading relate to my own life, something I'm learning about, any other material that I might have encountered in the past. So we're trying to make those connections. And you should have learned those kind of connections in years past, but we'll talk about those in a little bit more detail later. So these are just a few of those attributes of what it means to be a real reader or a wow reader. And then we're going to talk about what does it mean to be a fake reader, or the, oh no, that's not what we're supposed to be doing. So we're going to write a few of those so we can make sure that we don't follow those. So it might be that we read books that are too hard or too easy. So read books that are too hard or easy. So that's why it's important for us to read our leveled book, because we do the most growth as a reader when it challenges us, but it also, we have the ability to make that understanding or those connections without struggling too much. A fake reader also moves around a lot. Or takes breaks, because we know the importance of uninterrupted reading. That way our thoughts are going to stay buried right into that text, and we're able to apply the strategies that we're trying to work with during our reading time. Another thing is they don't think when they're reading. So don't think while reading. And they pretend. Pretending means that they have a book open, it's in their lap, they're sitting somewhere, but They're not actually engaging in the text by reading the words, trying to understand what the author is describing to them. So this is just called our pretend, and we don't grow as a reader like the rest of our classmates if we just do the pretending. So these are just a couple examples of what it means to be a real reader versus a fake reader, and how important it is for us to do that real reading time so we can grow as much as we can possibly grow by reading our leveled text. The next thing we're going to look at is our timeline. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my notebook again and have my folded paper unfolded. So at the top, in very nice, neat writing, I'm going to write timeline of being a reader. So this is the title of what our timeline is going to encompass. So a timeline is a marking of time when certain significant events have happened. So if we have the title of a timeline of being a reader, we are going to include things on our particular timelines that will be a record of our interactions or our experiences with books. So when we do a timeline, I'm going to start by making my beginning line of my timeline, and this just indicates where I'm starting. So you can draw a little line with pencil only. Make sure it's pencil first. And then we're going to draw a nice straight as we can line going from the left side all the way over to the right side. So one of the important characteristics of a timeline is that marking of time that has passed. So the left side is going to indicate when you were first born. So we're going to say born, and then you can put the year, and I'm going to just put that in parentheses for you to know that that is where you're placing the year you were born. Then at the end of our timeline, we're going to put today's date. So we're going to say 4th grade, and today's date is 8/26/20. You can also put how old you are. So if you're 9 years old, you can put 9 years old. If you're 10 years old, you can put 10 years old, or if you're a different age, you can do that as well. So what we're going to do with our timeline, the top part of our timeline is going to be the marking of years or ages that you were at that time, between the time you were born and today's date. The bottom half is going to indicate that experience that you had at that particular age. So what I want you to write on this timeline is any type of memories that you had while reading a book. So it could be where you mark down when you were 2 years old, and you can say possibly there is a specific or special book that you remember a family member read to you while snuggling up in your bed at nighttime, or sitting on the lap of a grandma or someone else that meant something special to you, and you remember them reading, sitting together outside or on a couch. So think of a time that you were really little, a baby, or in the first couple years. This is just an example of a time. You're going to tell me the name of the book, and then you're going to draw me a picture of what the book cover could look like. Or if you have it still, you can draw a very quick sketch of what that book looks like. Then you might start encountering some other times that you remember certain books. So it could be when you were 4 years old, and this is usually when a lot of our kids are in pre-K, so you might put the grade level. And then you can talk about a book that you remember your teacher reading in your first experience. So once again, on the bottom, you're going to tell me the new book, and then give me a picture underneath of that book. You're going to continue on marking the passage of time by recording at the top the age or the grade level that you were in, and underneath it, the book that you remember coming from that. So it could be where you remember in kindergarten, when you were 5 years old, a certain book. And the books don't have to just be read by teachers. Sometimes the most significant books that we read are the ones that we read with a loved one at home. So if there is a book that you remember a family member reading to you at that age, then you can write that as well. So then we can say 1st grade. and then maybe you were 6 years old, putting the dash on, tell me the book title, and a picture. And then you're going to continue on telling me different times of your life that you remember the age and the book that was given. So I'm going to just quickly kind of remind you that these are going to be books. And above it is going to be your age or grade level. Remember, I don't just want the age and book, I want you to also sketch a quick picture. The last one should be one of the books that we've read together this year. So you remember that in your notebook, if you go back a couple pages, we have made ourselves our beginning of our reading list. So you could even pick one of the books that we've read together and record it for your 4th grade book, and then how old you were when you listened to it. So this assignment, again, is going to start today in class, and then it is due by taking a picture of your timeline to submit to me by Friday at the end of the school day. Remember to have your title, the timeline drawn. You should have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, possibly 9 or 10 books, ages, and pictures. You can have the same age posted more than once, but I want you to try to remember from as early as you possibly can to today's date. You might need to ask a parent or a family member to help jog your memory of some of the books that were special to you when you were younger, and you can record those as well. All right. For today's lesson, take a picture of your WOW chart and submit it. Thanks.